Today's episode is going to be real talk. Do you ever have those moments, maybe days, maybe weeks, where you just feel like everything's falling apart? And then that feeling of being out of control leads to this snowball effect of self sabotage behaviors that add up until you feel completely unsuccessful. If you know what I'm talking about, today's episode is meant for the purpose of letting you know that you're not alone. I sat here thinking about what I wanted to record this week, and no matter what I decided on, it just didn't feel genuine. It didn't feel real because I could get on here and I could talk about imposter syndrome and goals and how to push through things, and that's great. But when you're sitting in the shit of things kind of snowballing and being overwhelming and feeling like they're falling apart, trying to get on a platform and tell others how to fix it feels completely incongruent for me. So today's episode is all about embracing the human in you, embracing the imperfection, learning from the mistakes, learning from the snowball effects, and knowing, most importantly, that you're not alone. My name is Amber Fuhriman, and this is the More Than Corporate podcast. Welcome to the More Than Corporate podcast. I'm Amber Fuhriman, recovering perfectionist and serial accomplisher. If you're anything like I used to be, you've been living your life thinking that if you accomplish enough stuff, you'll finally find the success you've always wanted. But what if it's not about accomplishing more stuff? What if it's about accomplishing the right stuff? I believe you don't find success, you create it by intentionally designing the life you want and having the courage to get out of your comfort zone to live your design. I went from doing what I was supposed to do to doing what I love to do, and now I get to help others do the same. Keep listening as I chat with inspiring people who make it their mission to live their best life every day and learn how you too can live the life you've always wanted. All right, guys, so let's have some real talk here for just a minute. Man, this week has been a week. And just to set the stage for you for a little bit, I have multiple businesses. You guys know that I run a law firm, I run a coaching business, I run a training center, I host this podcast, I co-host another podcast. And like a lot of high achievers that may be listening to this podcast, no matter how much you do, sometimes you feel like you need to do more or you need to do better or you aren't where you should be. And then all of the amazing stuff that you have inside of you to share gets stifled because look at what a mess I am. Who's going to listen to me? If you know what those feelings feel like, man, you're not alone. So about 6 weeks ago, I lost a very critical employee in my law firm, and it's taken me some time to replace her. I've been unable to get anybody reliable into the office, and there's been a lot of things that don't normally fall on my to-do list that have been on my to-do list. And instead of acknowledging that I'm human and that I only have so many hours in the day, what I would tell my coaching clients, I decided I was superwoman and I could just do it all. And I didn't adjust my schedule anywhere else. I would see things on my schedule and I would start to realize, like, man, today's going to be a rough day. It's going to take all the pieces falling into place in order for this all to work out. And then without having the support that I normally have or that anybody really needs to be successful at a high level, things started falling through the cracks. And instead of stepping back and saying, okay, what adjustments do I need to make right now for this short period of time? I instead went into, I failed. I'm not good enough. Who would listen to me? Why am I doing this? And what's really amazing about, I can't believe I'm saying anything is amazing about those feelings. What's really amazing about these feelings is that the more that you know them and the more that you experience them and the more that you allow yourself to sit in them, the more you get to learn from them. I'm working with a spiritual coach in addition to my business coach and my fitness coach and all of the other people that are helping me keep my life on track. And my homework for this last week with my spiritual coach was to allow myself to sit in and feel feelings. Anybody who knows me knows that feeling things is not a comfortable place for me. Being able to block out uncomfortable feelings to be successful at what I do on the outside is what made me a great attorney. Over the last couple of years, I've really been working on how do you open up and how do you allow those feelings and the connection and the human to come back into the profession of practicing law. In any profession where you are expected to achieve at a high level, there comes a point in time where we feel like emotions are unwarranted and unwelcome. And by keeping those emotions down, we think that we're achieving higher until a moment like today comes where you wake up and you just think, what am I even doing? How did it get so out of control? So the purpose of this episode isn't to say, oh my gosh, look how big of a mess Amber is. The purpose of this episode is to say when you feel like a mess, you are not alone. And that most likely it is nowhere near as bad as you think it is. I was sitting here again thinking about what I was going to record and how I was going to frame this message in a way that didn't make me feel like a total nutcase. And I opened my phone and I had a message from somebody who listens to this podcast. And without even knowing what I was going through, this message said, I just wanted to thank you because I wouldn't have even known what imposter syndrome was without you. And I still don't know how to deal with it, but at least I know how to recognize it. And I don't know if any of you play golf, but if any of you play golf and you've ever been on a golf course and you're frustrated as hell and you don't understand why you chose to pay money to be frustrated and to pay money to go play a game that you're not even good at, just so you can hit bad shot over bad shot over bad shot. And then you hit this one perfect shot that reminds you why you put in all the hard work. Those sweet moments of why we put in all the hard work, they don't exist without knowing what it feels like on that down, to feel lower and unsuccessful. And I want to make clear that although we might feel unsuccessful on the inside, the reason we feel that way is because all of these unmet expectations that we've put on ourselves of who we should be, and honestly, expectations that we would never expect somebody else to live up to. So where does this double standard come in, and why? Why in the world do we expect ourselves to live up to a standard that we would never expect anybody else to live up to? What makes us believe that we are less human than somebody else and are less entitled to mistakes? I know there's a lot of people listening to this who make mistakes and beat themselves up and then go down this rabbit hole of self-sabotage until something happens to snap you out of that. And my hope is that this episode is that. This episode is extremely vulnerable for me because I want to be able to come on here and say, here are the 4 steps to imposter syndrome, and here are the 6 steps to being able to set goals, and here's how you calendar every day consistently. But all I can tell you is that you do the best that you can at the time with the tools that you're given, and you're honest with yourself about where you're not reaching the goals that you want to reach and how we can work to be able to change the behavior to accomplish the goals. Here's the really uncomfortable part. Changing the behavior to accomplish the goals can only happen when you acknowledge there's a problem. And acknowledging there's a problem requires you to acknowledge that you're human and imperfect. And that requires you to acknowledge that you don't have it all together. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be. So I'm going to take a little bit of that uncomfortableness away from you. And I'm going to tell you right now, nobody has it all together. I don't care who you're watching. I don't care who you're looking at. I don't know who you're comparing yourself to. I don't care who you're modeling. When you look at them and you see all of the things that you wish you were and that you wish you were doing, and you don't see the flaws and you don't see the things that go on behind the scenes because you don't want to. So you put them on this pedestal of they must be better at this than I am. Knock that shit off now. And it's so uncomfortable. But the sooner that you do, and the sooner that you acknowledge that nobody knows what they're doing and nobody has it all together, and we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. And we all have these individual skills and experiences that we can use to teach others and help others through some of the same lessons that we've been through. And each person has this incredible gift of their own experiences and their own limitations that they've overcome and their own willingness to be vulnerable, to allow others to accomplish goals that they can accomplish when they get out of their own way. We all have that capability. In order for us to tap into it, you have to be willing to do something like this. You have to be willing to record something that you know is going to go out onto an international platform and say, you know what, I'm human. That's all we can ask of ourselves. So here's what I would love for you guys to do. I would love for you guys to take some time today for yourselves, take a deep breath, and figure out where in your life you have unreasonable expectations for yourself. Where is it that you are not allowing yourself to slow down? Where is it that you are expecting perfect out of yourself when perfect doesn't exist? And what is it that you can do that will allow yourself to change that? Because there is somebody, like the person who messaged me, there is somebody out there who is watching you right now, who is being inspired by your successes, who's being inspired by your vulnerability, who's being inspired by your willingness to be completely honest and transparent about what you feel and who you are and where you're going. So embrace that transparency. Remember, we all have the ability to design the life that you've always wanted, and you owe it to yourself to get out of your comfort zone and allow yourself to live it. And unfortunately, allowing yourself to live that life does not exist in a world with unreasonable expectations and a belief that you should be perfect. Shoot me a message and let me know what hit with this episode for you, because I am very sure that there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast that are sitting in a similar moment right now. And I just want you to know you're not alone. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the More Than Corporate podcast. If anything that was said during this episode resonated with you or provided value in any way, it would mean the world to me if you would head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the More Than Corporate podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you. If you'd also like to connect, I've created a Facebook group that is full of amazing people who also make it their mission to live their best life every single day. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, the name of that Facebook group is Success Center. Head over there, request to join, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.